Hey there everyone, and welcome to another KingsRoad video. This is one I've been wanting to make for a very long time. So in the past I've made a couple of videos using my test account doing master maps, and well, why that was good, there were various complaints that I was setting up my character in an unrealistic way and that kind of stuff. Like, I've always wanted to show my actual character doing these maps. The thing is, I haven't really wanted to do these festivals, and well, beyond the second set. I've sometimes gone to the second set, but going to the third set is utterly ridiculous. However, that's what I've done over the last 2 weeks. So while doing that, I've recorded each map one run, which we're going to go through. That's going to be the main bulk of this video, is going over those clips, talking about the strategy, and just generally enjoying the footage as best we can. But before that, I wanted to just show my character, because I've improved it quite a bit by getting 3 sets of elite jewels, and I want to show exactly how it's getting on, and just show it off before going into. It's also, I guess, good to look at my character before showing the runs, so you can kind of judge. Okay, this is this character strength. How well it can do the master maps. So here you can see this is the achievement just after Adamar's dungeon. I didn't record the first map or the last few maps. It's the last 3 or so, because they were past Adamar's dungeon. As you can see, the time's run out, and I haven't gone to then do a few runs of those to then master the strategy and then record it. It's just I haven't really had the time for that. So that's the last set of elite jewels that I haven't actually equipped yet. But I gave my character here. You can see my armor is quite high. I'm very proud of it. Across my equipment, I've got a load of fire jewels. It's where I put all my fire jewels. And here I actually need to upgrade these. This is one of the reasons why more elite spheres would be great, is I've got a few there. But I'm going to replace this glove at some point and then resocket it, and I won't have circle sockets. So, that's one of the reasons why I'm not too pressed about getting loads more of these elite jewels. But anyway, you can see various elite spheres that are superior quality or better across these. And then also some elite tristones in this bit. Otherwise, a lot of fire jewels there. My appearance I've resocketed mainly to fit on more elemental tristones. My character is, what I've tried to work towards is every single jewel socket is filled with either an elemental jewel or an elite jewel that is superior quality or better, which I've pretty much got to now. Now that I've done this festival and I've got 3 more sets of these, you can see here, I mean, it varies because when I get a new appearance set and I resocket it, I end up with different sockets. But you can see here I've got 2 crescents which are still fine quality. One of them is going to be superior, so there's just one more socket there. And across my trinkets I have my nature stuff, my nature jewels mainly, and also my elemental spheres. So there are a few dotted around which are fine quality elite jewels, but mostly they are superior quality now. So that's my character there, and I'm just going to show the other stats. Lifesteal, this has been boosted up a ton because 3 elite spheres, they each give 44% lifesteal, which is just crazy. So my lifesteal's gone up by a lot now. It's really, really good again. I do love lifesteal as a stat. These are my elemental stats. I'm very proud of them. That's pretty much what I've been working on over the last few years. So my nature is actually a little bit high if I switch to my PvP setup. This is my PvE setup that uses wisp. Yes, a wisp that is 69% fire. For PvP I switch to this other one which has high armor penetration and the 2 elemental stats, which, while their percentage total is less overall, because I've got such high elemental stats in general, the armor penetration is more valuable to me than a little bit more on an elemental stat. Anyway, that's them there, and then I'll just show these other stats. So if you're looking at this at a later date, you can see kind of, okay, these stats against the maps, how they work. So that's it for my character. I don't think there's anything more to show really. The only thing to say before we go into the runs is that unfortunately these maps are incredibly laggy. This is the case for everyone, it's not just me. My laptop is not, a top-end laptop. It's kind of coming to the end of its life. I plan to get a new laptop this year. But saying that, they are laggy for everyone, and when we're trying to record as well, it adds just a little bit more lag. In fact, a lot of these recordings are done while I was using Skype as well at the same time, so it probably didn't help either. But anyway, the lag is quite extreme, and so don't expect really high quality smooth footage for the rest of this video. I'll be commentating over it and trying to do high quality commentating, but the footage itself isn't necessarily something I'll be proud of. So I hope you can put up with the lag and that, and what you're looking at is actually what I'm trying to play. So if it looks kind of crazy and tough because the frame rate drops to, like, 5 per second or something like crazy like that, or even lower maybe, that's what I'm trying to deal with. So a lot of the time I'm using autoplay, but I'll talk about the strategy as we go through. And just to show here the 3 maps which I didn't do were the battlements, Inner Circle, and Adamar's Sanctum. I'm going to show this Adamar's dungeon clip twice because in fact the lag was so bad that I couldn't do the technique which I normally did to actually get through it. So I'm going to show it twice in order for me to talk about kind of what I actually did and that kind of stuff. But anyway, thanks very much thanks very much for watching. I felt like that was the end of the video. We're not the end of the video, we're at the start of the video. So let's have a look at some of the runs. So starting off with Calmwater Crossing here, we skipped the first map. I just completely forgot to record it and I wasn't going to bother going back, because these maps to start with are pretty much just run through, teleporting and kill the boss. I use the armor buff just to make it a little bit safer, so I don't really have to worry about keeping my health topped up or anything. It doesn't slow me down with the animation at all. So there we go. That's killing the boss with forest bolts. Next map, again, same kind of thing. We teleport past the enemies, doing a bit of running hit at that section because there's no kind of good angle for a teleport, and then again running at this section. Unfortunately, I just couldn't really find good angles for teleport, but it's fast enough that we can get through it quickly. The Silk Road, I think this one is. I can't remember exactly, but anyway, it's another simple case of teleporting through. I really like the map of this one. It's a nice smooth curves and some cool enemies in it. I can kill that boss pretty quickly, a couple of skill uses lined up. Spider's Den now. A little bit awkward map at the start that you can't really teleport through, but then it opens up nicely. You can get a nice teleport into the bottom right here, which annoyingly I got knocked back. I swear I didn't get knocked back on any run other than the one I recorded. And then I can come up here. This boss takes a little bit more skill use now. The bosses are starting to get a little bit tougher, so I move in and use autoplay next to it. So we got KingsRoad Creek here. This one takes a little bit more thought. You've got the Shroud of Warlord there, which again I get knocked back. Didn't really happen on other runs, but this one I have to be quite careful at this section coming up here. This guy throws an axe at you and it knocks you back. If you time the teleport for when the axe hits you, then it doesn't actually knock you back. So I time the teleport each time. I buff up before this boss as well, because it takes a little bit more to defeat it. And then autoplay next to the boss. Or actually, I'm not sure if I use autoplay in this one, but I actually only noticed afterwards I'm not using forest bolts. I came to this run after doing something else and I had flame cannon on, so it's normally a little faster taking down that boss. Executioner Camp. This is a lovely short map, well known for its good farming potential because it's so short. So straight run to the boss, hit autoplay. Oh no, I'm not using autoplay at this point. And just spam the skills and take it down in reasonable speed. Next map, this is Brightwall Gates. So this is just before it starts getting a little bit trickier. Brightwall Gates, I actually avoid putting the armor buff on here. Most of the time I could just run through the map and not even need to heal. And the reason why is I'm saving the armor buff for the boss fight. At this point I'm not using a cooldown potion or anything, so I don't want the armor buff to end while I'm in the boss fight. And then I can go next to the boss, spam some skills. You can see I did a polymorph there to send the enemies behind back into the map and take down the boss pretty quickly. So Brightwall Keep, this boss has a lot of health, and it's where it starts getting a bit tougher. So I've got potions active, which means I can teleport more frequently. It means I can spam the skills much better. I can have the armor buff on constantly. There isn't that awkward little window. And it just makes this run a lot faster. I could do it without potions, but it's a lot faster with the potions. So I buff up next to the boss, start spamming some attack skills. Can't really use autoplay on this boss because it does one-shot attacks at close range. So instead I stand at a reasonable distance away and start spamming these skills to slowly take it down. Annoyingly, my Archmage doesn't last quite long enough. My Archmage and Mimic run off, and then I do quite a bit less damage, so it took a little bit to take down at the end. Here, I was kind of experimenting with dragons for this one, in this run. I didn't end up using dragons in the end on later runs, but anyway. This map can be a little bit tricky. The boss is a little bit awkward to face, but the run to the boss is kind of fine. At this point, you have to be quite careful with when you do the buffs. I delay the use of Fiery Aura so that I can use it after it's done that initial kind of hit. I found that I could survive that. If the armor buff isn't on, then it didn't survive. And sometimes with a bit of knockback in there, it can interrupt things and mess me up, and I died. So I found by delaying the Fiery Aura, that was like the consistent way to then have Fiery Aura on for the later bit where I could die. Now the godwood is one which some people struggle with. It is definitely awkward to run through, but you can see I've got quite a good route for going through there. If you're weaker, I'd say definitely draw the boss out of the boss area. But what I found was I could actually go in here and kill the boss off with autoplay very quickly if I buffed up and I'm using the potions. The enemy in the boss area which creates the tornado is definitely the trouble, and also the boss summons a load of imp stuff. So now we have the Lost Hills. This is the toughest map before the second set of Elitials, which is on Blind Man's Pass, the next map. And as you can see, I've got a bit of a route to teleport around past the enemies. At this point, you want to wriggle around on the right hand side, and then I don't reapply the buff quite yet. I get to this corner, reapply the armor buff, switch to Mana Storm, and then hit autoplay. I found by teleporting past that last group and getting into this corner, it gave me that sort of couple of seconds to put on Mana Storm and then hit autoplay. And once I got autoplay going with the skills in this order, it's very solid, it's very hard for the enemies to kill me, and the boss doesn't do too much itself. So now we're on to Blind Man's Pass. This is where you get the second set of Elitials, or where most people stop. It's a little easier than the last map, but similar kind of style. You've got the giants. It's a bit easier to teleport through, passing over those groups of enemies with the teleports. And very similar idea. What we do here is we go down in the bottom right, just in the corner of the boss area, to switch to Mana Storm before then standing next to the boss and hitting autoplay. I catch that rock roller on the right with the polymorph, which makes it a lot easier to do because I'm getting knocked back less because there aren't the two rocks coming at me. And you can see as the enemies are coming in, they're getting polymorph, they're getting killed off by the AoE, they don't really get a chance to kill me. Sommar Village now, this map is a lot easier than the last few we've had, I guess. Yeah, easier than the last few. There are groups of enemies, but it's basically just that one section which is a problem. And you can teleport through most of it with a lot of ease. And then stop just before the boss to switch to Mana Storm, or going next to the boss and hitting autoplay. This boss is really easy. The enemies around it, they don't really do anything tricky, so they just kind of die to AoE stuff and polymorph. There's no real threat. If you watch my health, it doesn't really go down the entire time that I'm in that boss fight. The next map is Castle Sommar. This one I hate, and everyone hates. It's the big hurdle that you have to get past if you want to go beyond and go to the third set. The main reason, you can probably see, the lag is extreme in this map. It's an enormous map, and with loads of enemies in it, and I think that just means the lag is just enormous. My lag was kind of worse than what other people seem to get as well. So anyway, it's also tricky to get through. You can see the teleport points. I pause at this point to reapply my armor buff before going past this Shroud Warlord. The Shroud Warlord's the guy with the big axe there. The Shroud Warlords are incredibly dangerous. They can one-shot you if you're not careful. I switched to Drake now. I've changed my my setup because Drake is really useful for this boss for keeping it at a distance from you. So I use autoplay to take out these enemies. It's just faster to spam the skills when you're on, when you've got a cooldown potion on. And I've changed my armor buff as well, so it is 80 out of 99, which means I get more armor from it. And the cooldown is nicely balanced, so when I'm using autoplay, it reuses it as soon as the armor buff comes off. Now, annoyingly, for most of the master maps, I think it was only on the last map where I actually changed it so that it would reliably not reapply it too soon, because sometimes with the lag, technically it shouldn't have been able to do this, but because of the lag it was able to reapply the armor buff before it actually ended, so then I had a massive window where I had no armor on and I just die really easily. Anyway, moving back to the technique here, you've probably been noticing what I do is I'm using autoplay and getting it to a distance and then reusing autoplay, and then when they get close I turn it off, run away, reuse autoplay, and I'm using the skill book which gives me move speed to move around a little bit faster as well. Teleport would be nice to go around in the map like that, but I wanted as much damage as I could have on the class, so I just didn't have teleport on. I don't have Mana Storm here, which I maybe could have used, but I don't think the boss gets slowed at all, so there wasn't a whole lot of use for it. I wanted the range damage from the Arcane Ball rather than the Mana Storm. So this boss has tons of health. It's one of the mega bosses like the Siege Beast and Adamar at the end, and they just have a lot more health, and they have various attacks which do enormous damage. So that was that run. Took about 2 minutes, I think, and you have to do 90 runs, which means it just takes hours. That's why I hate that map. Anyway, onto the Burial Grounds. This was actually my original farming map. I love this map. It's very easy to run through. You can avoid a lot of the enemies. A lot of the enemies are kind of optional in this area, in this map. So you can teleport through most of it with relative ease. Getting to the boss fight, I switched to Mana Storm, and I go and take out this enemy at the bottom. It has an annoying move where the sort of lightning strikes come down on you, and that can kill you. Now I should have turned off autoplay and reapplied it, so I started attacking the boss sooner, but it didn't matter too much. This boss fight's really easy. There's only little enemies which come in, so they will die off to the AoE or get polymorphed. So it's pretty much just you and the boss itself is, you can see it's like sluggishly walking around and occasionally hits me with something. Now we move on to the Forsaken Sanctuary. This is a little more awkward to run through. This teleport I could just never aim. The teleport across that bridge, the angle is so awkward. And then moving through this section, I put on Protection Bubble because it can get a little awkward. There's quite a few enemies which will attack you. You can see a bit of lag stacking up there. And then there's some archers here which they're guaranteed to sort of hit you as you pass. So you've got to have enough health for that. I do the usual, switch to Mana Storm, run up to the boss, and then hit autoplay. Now I actually ran a little bit too close this time, so I get whacked down to low health because I wasn't prepared with the defense buffs and attacking things properly. So I wasn't in the best of health when he then did his big attack. But anyway, as you can see, smooth enough. It's taken out all the other enemies, and the boss, you can see next to me, it's not actually putting my health under threat. This next map is the Badlands, one of the ones which I absolutely hate. This and the next one is just packed full of enemies. You can see there's just tons of enemies here, and there's no obvious breakpoint in the map. So I use this area as a breakpoint, and I buff up, not just with the defense buffs, I also reapply the armor there, but also the damage buffs, because I run through this section and basically there are too many, so I polymorph at this point, then do Mana Storm, and then those enemies will mostly die off as they come chasing after me. Now I'm actually keeping teleport on because what I'm going to do is, rather than just put autoplay on, as I'm able to do in the other matches, other maps, I need to run around and just spam AoE attacks and slowly take down all the enemies. I'm trying to put pressure on the boss as well, but this particular run I wasn't able to quite so much. You can see these two fire conjurers, another one on the left there which I targeted. They create these bonfires that basically stop you from using autoplay, because if you stand still in a bonfire you just die. A knockback there messed up my autoplay, so I had to quickly move over and then use autoplay again there. The boss itself is not too bad, just the map and the enemies are a nightmare on that map. The next map, also a very tricky one, packed full of enemies, and running to the boss. I think this was one of my most unreliable, I guess, techniques, but basically the map itself, I think, killed me almost more than any other map. Running through past these enemies with the amount of lag and stuff, I just randomly get hit and killed or one shot sometimes. But anyway, so that was my technique for it, running through there as best I could. The boss itself is interesting, but it's annoying because it's so long to do. There's just no way to bypass it. So I'm taking out the enemies. Similar to the last one, I'm running around and attacking. I put a little bit of pressure on the boss, but mainly you just got to chip off a bit of health, and then he's going to summon in these two serpents. So you've got plenty of time to take out these serpents, but you've got to watch out because the boss is going to attack through from the ground. It doesn't do enormous damage, but it does enough that if you're not on high health and you don't have massive defenses on at the time, it can kill you. So now the boss is going to come back up. I set up a Mana Storm for it. I attack it with a few skills. I'm not using autoplay at all here because I need to basically line up my skills perfectly for when the boss comes up the next time. Because after the next time, it can go down again and then create 4 serpents, but if you're quick enough and you line up your skills correctly, it is possible. Obviously, you've got to have enough damage too, but for me, it's possible to line up all my skills, and you can see here I'm putting on all the damage over time skills throughout the forest belts, and I can kill it off before it goes down. It does one hit on me, but I really don't care because it's dead. The next map is the second last map that we got, Fortress Approach, with arguably the toughest boss in the game on it. He's got some really overpowered attacks, but he is possible to abuse. The map itself is much easier to get through. The enemies are just nicely grouped together, and they don't put much pressure on you. There's loads of enemies in that area, but you can just teleport through and run away, skim along the top, and they won't actually follow you to this boss area. So once you're here, you're totally safe. Got through the map nice and quickly. The boss itself, though, takes a little bit of technique to it. You have to be very careful you don't run close at this point, because the area on that lightning is just ridiculous. So I put up a Drake to begin with right in front of me. Now I'm using autoplay from this distance. Crucial thing, this boss can be stunned. So you can see right now it's stunned. Also, it doesn't really move close to you. It takes ages doing range attacks and AoE attacks around it if you put the Drakes there. So Drake is crucial for this, and it will kill them off with that lightning that you can see right there, but he doesn't actually do anything while he's in that animation other than stand there. So anyway, as you can see, he slowly came towards me but didn't really do that much, and my AoE attacks took out the small enemies. It's a very good way of dealing with him, and if he did get close, I could run away and just put Drakes behind me and then hit autoplay again. So now we come to Adamar's dungeon. This technique is not what I used. I'm going to commentate on the technique we're seeing here, having to delay, wait until I can do the armor buff, teleport past the Shroud Warlord. I still get hit, I'm getting smashed, so I have to use the healing potion, the festival healing potion that is, teleport past its next group, and then you can see the whole time I'm trying to stack on the armor buff and the protection bubble. Now we get to this bit here, just before the last path. The path there is ridiculous. I need a runic potion to get through, which I wouldn't normally. Well, I'll talk about in a second. I had to wait for my armor buff to get ready and the runic potion to come off cooldown, because using the festival potion means I can't use the runic potion for 20 seconds, and then I can run over and get behind the boss. I hit autoplay just to do a bit to it to begin with, but ultimately what I'm going to be doing is a similar technique to what you saw me do on a few other bosses, which is I'm going to skirt around and use air of effect attacks to deal with those enemies and try to reduce their number, because if I go into that, I am going to get killed. The enemies at this point do so much damage, it's absolutely ridiculous. That I think the power is like 250, no, 200, I can't remember how much it is, but the enemies are very tough. So you can see I'm continuing to skirt around and use some air of effect attacks and stuff, slowly taking down the enemies. Bit of autoplay in there, bit of manual play to just do this carefully. So basically I was having a lot more lag than other people were, and when I recorded, the lag increased even further. So the Shroud Warlords in this map can one-shot me. When I was recording, it was impossible to teleport past them without them hitting me, even if I did max teleport distance, that kind of stuff. So it meant I had to use a healing potion. I had to also pause to reapply armor buffs and stuff, and for that reason I couldn't do the technique that I normally would, which I will point out the differences now. So this first bit, exactly the same, and at this point I do still pause to reapply my armor buff before teleporting past the Shroud Warlord. However, you can see how far away it is. Okay, I ran in a little bit close there, but basically I teleport past that, I can continue going. I don't use a healing potion here, and I can continue up this bit without having to heal at all, because I've stacking these defense buffs enough, and my Archmage as well is 99, so it has the heal over time. Now runic potion, basically I'd pause here again to reapply buffs, then use a runic potion and teleport through that last bit, so I don't have all this waiting time up here. A runic potion gives you 80% damage reduction for 5 seconds. I really don't like using consumables, but that path there at the end, there's a Shroud Warlord at the beginning and at the end, and because of my lag, I simply could not get past them without them knocking me back or hitting me. Sometimes I'd be in here using autoplay fighting the boss, and then suddenly it goes, "Oh, you were knocked back by that enemy," and I would fly all the way over into that path, and I'd instantly die. So it was just ridiculous, and unfortunately, because of that lag, I just couldn't fight properly, and I had to resort to using a runic potion each run, which I really don't like doing, but I'll happily admit that that's what I did. Anyway, that pretty much concludes this video. You can see here at the end the technique. I hope you enjoyed watching these master maps. They're definitely insanely tough, some of the later ones. There's a few which are a lot easier as you go through, but I have tried to highlight that as I talked about the technique. Hope this has given you a bit of an idea of what you can do to get through these. My character's a lot stronger than most people's, so if you go in with a weaker character, you will get absolutely smashed in some of these maps. It's very important that you're able to tank against the enemies. Anyway, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in another one soon.